Hey guys, welcome to Now That's Debatable. This is your host, Fantastic Facade. I am joined with my co-host, AAA the Humanist. And today, we don't have a guest, and we're not doing it on Tuesday, so we thought we'd have a weird Thursday and react to some religious memes backslash a few Facebook posts that AAA found. And I have part of them up on the screen. I'm going to make them bigger so you guys can see them. Chat will be up on the screen if anybody says anything or if you have a comment or an opinion on the meme and or our viewpoint or take on it. Is there a particular one you'd like to start with? Because I have them
Nah,
all.
let's surprise me.
Well, I don't know if you can see the screen or which one I choose. So let's go with the atheist robot one. This is one I sent
Okay.
you. So now it should be full size up on the screen. It is.
I,
So
th- I think you still have Brady.
yeah, let me trash Brady's name real quick. Sorry about that,
Yeah,
guys.
he's on a show in
Fixed.
spirit.
Fixed it did.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, the atheist robot. Um, now full screen.
Ah, okay. The atheist robot.
Mm-hmm,
Nobody
mm-hmm,
built me. I involved from a vacuum cleaner.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The classic. I don't understand evolution.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see this post a lot in Facebook groups, and especially recently, like more and more recently.
Hmm.
Um, and I have yet to decide to argue or comment with any sincerity or desire to try to have a conversation with the person that posted it, because I feel like if you are at this level of intelligence, it's not going to be a good conversation.
We've had people on the show make similar arguments like this. Like I don't remember his name. I think it was Angel or somebody like that.
Yeah,
He's the guy that
he's
hung up on
probably
his
one of the
mid
people
call.
posting this video, like this picture.
Yeah. So he posted his meme.
One of the people, I'm sure, he's probably
Oh,
reposting
really?
it. Yeah,
Okay, yeah. Cause you remember he was like, he asked, so you believe that a tornado could go through a junkyard and randomly assemble a 747? And so
yeah.
this was the level of understanding that he had regarding evolution. Like he thinks, I guess,
So
I don't know
he
what do you
he
think is
he,
happening.
he
Go ahead.
ascribes. I think people that use this meme ascribe evolution and chaos in the same
Mm-hmm.
concept.
Right.
They think like evolution is pure chaos and that's it. And in reality, all evolution is a change of allele frequency in biological organisms. So when you say something like a robot evolving from a vacuum cleaner, you're kind of missing a really key component, and that's the proponent of change in biological organisms. Because, things like, for instance, polypeptides. If you're not familiar with the term polypeptides, you're probably posting something like this. But if you know what a polypeptide is, you know what spontaneous side chaining is, or you might be familiar with spontaneous side chaining. And that's when peptides can spontaneously bond and join together to form longer peptides, right? And these longer peptides actually form proteins, which are the building blocks of life. But with all that in mind, it takes a biological process. It takes things that are moving on their own, and it takes formations through things like polypeptide side chaining for evolution to happen. And so when you say, like, I'm an atheist robot, I evolved from a vacuum cleaner, what you're saying is you're ignoring the complex blueprints and time that went into making this robot completely separate to making a vacuum. And we have documents and we can find like pretty well documented cases of both, of like robots like Honda and Toyota, and then everybody else has built robots, and Boston Dynamics that are just like not far from me. They have these pages and pages of information on how to assemble these things, but they're non-organic. They're never going to do it on their own. So I've never took the time to argue with someone on Facebook, because I feel like if you don't understand some of these really basic things, like, metals have no capability of, spontaneously bonding with other metals, right? It's just not going to happen on its own. Now, if you have metal on top of metal and, like, lightning or lava hits it, maybe, but that's a whole different, that's not, polypeptide side chaining, and that's, not, molecular bonds. These are just circumstance. So, I don't know. I think this is a silly one that we see far too often. And it just shows,
low-hanging fruit for sure.
This is the tell me you don't know biology without telling me you don't know biology post. So, anything else on this one?
No. I think that covers it.
Do you have a preference of where we go next?
Nope. I don't even remember all the ones I sent you.
Okay, fair enough. I'll send you the most recent one you sent me.
Okay.
God doesn't send anyone to hell. He just honors your choice.
Oh, that's really goofy. So, apparently they never read the Bible.
I would tend to agree.
God is definitely sending people. I mean, when he says depart from me, like ye cast into eternal darkness, like, like, what is that? Or how about when in a Revelation, when it says like, and hell and death was cast into the lake of fire?
Mm-hmm.
What's the let me look up the exact passage. This is Revelation
14:8 maybe.
Let's see. I should have had this on hand. Maybe it's 21. I'm sure it's like way at the end.
Yeah.
But it says, no, it's been a while since I read the Bible,
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and so it's anyone whose name was not found written in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire. All right. Anyone whose name was not found written in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire. Does that sound like they're choosing to go?
Nah.
Yeah. I mean, your facade. So, like, if I throw you into a pit, would you say, "Oh, that was just your choice"?
Yeah, I would say that's a very different thing than me jumping into a pit.
Right. So, like, that's just total nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, on top of this, like, if you read your Bible, there's plenty of verses that talk about, like, you just not having a choice when it comes to salvation. The fact that your name's either in the book or it's not. The fact that your name can't be put in or taken out of the book. The fact that God can literally change your mind and make you believe lies. And, I mean, these are, like, very specific examples that happen. Like, we have I think it's 1 Thessalonians, where it talks about God can send a strong delusion so that men will believe a lie. Mm-hmm. You have a specific example in Pharaoh, where God hardens his heart. So, yep. I mean, in that case, like, Pharaoh didn't even have a chance. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is...
Yeah, he was created as a vessel of dishonor. He was literally created so God could destroy him.
Yeah,
that was his purpose.
Need to brush up on the old Bible if this is your go-to.
Right, and then in addition to that, so what the argument tend to be is that by choosing to not believe or choosing to not be a Christian, you're choosing to go to hell. And that's not the same thing. It'll
No.
be like, if you point a gun at me and say, give me your money, and I refuse to give you my money, therefore I'm choosing death. No, I'm not choosing to die.
Yeah.
So that's not how that works. Like you merely under duress. So yeah, this concept of choice, they have a very strange understanding of it.
I agree.
But
I agree. Uh, you said you wanted to save those posts for last, so
yeah,
I'm gonna go with this one because I think it was really funny. This is the Jesus one.
okay.
This is a pretty famous painting. It's Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he's praying. Uh, and it says, "Are you there, Dad? It's me, you." And I find this one humorous.
Yeah, so I and the Father are one.
I
I
and the
mean,
Father are one.
yeah,
So
yeah. So this is obviously like a shot at the Trinity,
yeah,
the
yeah,
incoherent concept. Yeah.
yeah. This is
Hey,
definitely a
Dad,
take
it's
on
me, you.
Trinitarianism. It's such a good one. I love it. It's so short. It's so sweet. It's so simple.
Hmm.
It's great. It's a stab at the Trinity. If you're a
Hmm.
Trinitarian and you're watching this, or if you're a Trinitarian and you don't quite understand why it's humorous, maybe you can come on the show and explain the Trinity in a coherent manner to anyone, because I don't think anyone's ever done it ever. Like this.
You know, even I remember when I was in college studying theology, and we were talking with the professor trying to come up with like metaphors to describe the Trinity.
Mm,
And in each analogy that we used was just a form of heresy,
yeah,
the way he saw it. And that that ought to be a red flag. Like anytime that there's you have this concept and there's nothing that could be analogous to it, you may have an incoherent concept. Like it can't be. You couldn't say like the Trinity is like water, right? Like it could be gas, liquid, or solid, like ice. You know what I'm saying? And but because that would imply that at one point he's the Father, then he morphs into the Son, and then he morphs into the Holy Ghost. But he's all three at the same time. I forget which form of heresy that is, but that doesn't work. And then some people they try to use the egg analogy, and that fails as well because that implies that the that one part of the Trinity is inside of another, which is inside of another, and that's not how they work either. But they're also not three separate ones either, so that's wrong. And so, like, and there's I've tried to think of analogy for any sort of coherent way that the Trinity could exist, and each one of them are are heresies. So this is a red flag. If everything in reality that could be used to describe this thing is incoherent, then you may have an incoherent concept, and I think that's the case with the Trinity.
yeah.
We need to get somebody up here to debate the Trinity because that's the one topic we've never had. You know what? We haven't done the uh hypostatic union either. I think that's even more problematic. But this
Yeah.
meme right here, the biggest killers in history. So, well, I know that they're just objectively wrong about Hitler being an atheist.
They're wrong about Lenin. They're wrong about Pol Pot. They're wrong about Hideki, and they're probably wrong about Mao Zedong.
Hmm.
Um, Pretty sure all of them believed in a supreme being.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, I mean, I know for sure, like, Pol Pot was, like, not by any means like believer per se, but like he was using the concept of like a self god or like a god appointed, very
Hmm.
similar to Mao Zedong, where like I'm a supreme being's chosen person to cleanse the people. Very much like a drugged out Hitler, but Hitler was Catholic, like pronounced like practicing Catholic. In fact,
Hmm.
he had a blessing from the Pope like the year he committed suicide.
In addition to that, it ignores the fact that even if Hitler was an atheist, that he didn't do those atrocities by himself. He was assisted by the millions of people in that country that was helping enforce those policies, who were largely Catholic. So,
Yeah,
what's
I
going
mean,
on there?
on top of it all, like no one's murdering anyone in the name of atheism.
Right.
Uh, there's if you've not heard of him, there's a pretty funny Jim Jeffries skit where he's talking about how he's an atheist and he just says like no one has ever got on a plane and strapped a bomb to themselves and stood up and screamed in the name of nothing and then blew themselves up.
Facts.
And I was just like, yes, that's a pretty fair assessment of how religion works. Like people aren't murdering people in the name of atheism. People are named like Mao Zedong was killing people in the name of communism. Hitler was killing people in the name of racism. I mean, like, well, I mean, I guess you could shorten it to racism, but
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
and that's the thing. So that people, they have this misunderstanding of what atheism is.
yeah.
Like
I mean, Pol
it's
Pot
just a
was just
position
straight up
on.
like genociding people because like he thought like learning disabilities and or physical abnormalities didn't belong, so he was murdering people in Cambodia.
Right.
And like by the way, like he got to decide what those abnormalities might be. So if you said a particular word a particular way, or if you needed reading glasses, that might be a sign that you're going to get murdered by Pol Pot.
Right.
Uh, I had the fortunate pleasure of having to work with a guy who was the grandson of like actual refugees to America from Cambodia escaping Pol Pot.
Hmm.
And I got to talk to him a little bit about it, which he didn't know nearly as much as I would love to talk to his grandparents, just to kind of, pick their brains and kind of see what their thoughts were and hear their side of the story, because I think that'd be a really interesting thing. But yeah, most of the people up here are probably theist, if not deist, and some of these people probably like straight religious, like Hitler. Hideki was also religious. But yeah, I mean they're not
Also,
killing in the name of atheism.
right. Also, I like to point out that there's a certain character in the Bible that once killed everybody on the entire earth.
Except 8
Except
people.
for like 8 people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, if you want to say, oh, it was atheism, I mean
Yeah.
that person that flooded the entire earth certainly wasn't an atheist. You know. So,
Yeah, I can also
get
say
a
that
comment,
that
but
that person may or may not have given orders to kill hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of other people throughout history.
mhm. Right,
You know what I'm
right.
saying? Like, I mean, I don't know the exact numbers because there's a lot, but I bet you somebody's done them, and I bet you
Mhm.
it's a lot.
Yeah. It's a guy named Dan Shire. He said they think that if only they had God in their lives, they wouldn't have been murderers.
Mm,
Right? Yeah, because that's what it takes, right? Hitler definitely wouldn't have done what he did if only the baby killing homophobic God who flooded the entire earth was in his life.
yeah. Let's go with
Yeah, we saw that. Somebody talk about Trump guilty. Yeah, we saw that.
yeah. Let's go with this one. This is a good short, funny one.
Yeah, 34 felonies, man. That's insane. Ah, Also, so this one is. Did I send you this one?
Yeah, he's amazing.
Okay, I don't remember where I got it from, but I'm almost certain it was from a Precept website. It's probably one of those reform memes websites because I mean, in it you see it is literally making the Precept argument. So it's saying that the atheists, in order to, or atheists, ignoring the atheistic worldview and looking at the Christian worldview, and they say that they do this by appealing to things like reason in order to say something's true, in order to have any sort of intelligibility. The precept argument is that you need God for it. And so we've had a few precepts on the show. They most I don't think we haven't had a straight up Van Tillian precept on the show because most of the guys who call themselves precepts deviated from Van Til, pretty early on. But the presuppositionalism, the way Van Til taught it, was that you need God in order to reason. And notice I didn't say you need to believe in God, but you need God. That's what his argument was. And he never really tied it in. He never explained why. But what he said was that if atheists, by rejecting the existence of God and still claiming to know things, you're appealing to something that you explicitly say doesn't exist, and there's a contradiction in your worldview. That is the precept argument. That's what's going on in this meme, I believe. That I can't see anybody other than a precept posting something like this.
Yeah, fair enough. I'd agree. We hear a lot of people saying that atheists, the only way they have worldview is because they steal from the Christian worldview and all that fun stuff. So I'd say maybe a precept, maybe just like leaning Calvinist, perhaps, maybe not hardcore precept, but yeah, I mean, you hear that a lot, like, oh, you get your morals from Christianity if you
Yeah, somebody said that on the show. I think that was Pastor Ainsley. We invited him back on the show. Hopefully, he'll respond soon. But yeah, he said that we get our moral system from the Christian God, and as he pointed out, the problem with that is our moral system will condemn that God as immoral.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to quickly
problematic.
apologize to everyone. I don't know why the chat wasn't up on the screen, but I did a test just to make sure it's up there now. So if you comment again, it will show up on the screen. Apologize for missing that. But yeah, this is like a classic precept meme. Let's go this one. This is a very classic Dumb and Dumber reference. If you haven't seen the movie, starring Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels. I am not going to attempt that number, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Are you counting the zeros? Jeez.
50. So it's in standard scientific notation. It's 48 times 3, 150 minus 4, 646 plus 2 is 148. So it's 1.7469 times 10 to the 48th power to the 148th power.
Jeez.
In case you're curious.
So they use that word random that you see a lot. The chances of it randomly happening, like as if like there aren't laws of physics at play that's directing this, and that's the thing that bugs me. Like I remember the angel guy that we had up here. Like he kept talking about things randomly happening, and I was trying to point out that these aren't random. Like when hydrogen forms and creates a star, that's not random. There's laws of physics at play. If you leave a bunch of hydrogen atoms to itself, and you just have the four laws of physics, you're going to get stars. You're going to get a bunch of them, and
Yeah,
it's
and
not
as far as
random
we can
chance.
tell, with the exception of one that we've observed, we have the makeup of DNA with exception of one out of the 32 components on Earth that make up all known life. We've observed them happening quote unquote randomly because of polypeptide side chaining and like chemical bond sharing. So we've seen this in all of like but one out of 32. And people are like, well, if you don't have all 32, God. And I'm just like, man, we've observed so much. We've seen this happen. We've gathered evidence of this happening on like meteors. We know this can happen in other places. Now, does it have complex life? No, but we have seen polypeptide side chaining. We have seen molecular synthesis of proteins forming, all but like one out of the 32 known on Earth or something like that. It's insane. So it's not like you were saying. It's not really a random thing. It's kind of like when you go in the gym and you work out and you lift heavy weights and your muscles tear, and then they heal back up and now they're bigger. Well, that's not random. That's the byproduct of working your muscles to failure. That's just what happens, and what happens with polypeptide side chains and protein formation is these things, if they get within proximity of each other, will bond and form more complex organisms, which will eventually be life. And you can break them down that way as well. But somebody did some really interesting math with this. I was looking at it before I sent you the meme. This is assuming that this would happen in one day.
Really?
Yeah.
I
So
was kind of goofy.
You could subtract quite a few zeros from that number because you can add billions of years to it.
Hmm.
It's fortunate that you can subtract quite a few zeros from that
Oh,
because there are billions of years, and this is talking about the possibility of a day. So yeah, there you
wow.
go. Fun one.
That is, that's pretty goofy, man.
Pretty goofy.
Yep. Tell me you don't understand biology.
Yeah, tell me you don't understand biology. We'll go this one next. This one, atheist. There's no such thing as miracles. Also atheist. The universe came from nothing.
Ah, the classic. So yeah, they believe that nothing exploded in nowhere because there was no space and created everything. I don't see the meme on up here yet. Oh, you know what? I may not be live. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there's about a 17-ish second delay.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I don't know how many times I've corrected people about this just on a podcast alone, and
Yeah.
it seems like every conversation that I've gotten into, and especially if this person doesn't talk to a lot of atheists, this is usually where they go. Oh, you believe everything came out of an explosion. You think everything came from nothing, which is just nonsense. That's not what the Lambda CDM model is. So, I mean, I'm not going to go into everything, explain what the Big Bang was and how it worked, but it's not a everything from nothing. It's a something from something. We just don't know what the before something was. That's it. So this is nonsense. And even if we were saying that the universe came from nothing, that wouldn't mean God did it.
Also, I'd like to point out that there's a fundamental flaw with the argument that theists use when trying to use this as a gotcha. And I'm going to point it out to you. And if it doesn't make sense to you, let me know. But if it makes sense to you, then I think I'll have explained it well enough. And it's a really easy kind of a combat this with did God use something to create the universe?
And my understanding from most Christians would probably say no. Where they
Right.
use the ex nihilo, right?
Yeah,
Out of nothing, right?
Yeah, right. So if God didn't use anything, the universe did quite literally come from nothing in your
Mm-hmm.
argument, right?
Right.
And
He
God
spoke magic
literally used
words.
nothing. So what you're saying is that given the right constitution of events, or given the right circumstances, a universe can come from nothing.
Well, God can do it.
Yeah, but
That's
the process that God used
mm-hmm.
is how the universe came to be, whatever that process is.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you think that God is a maybe the conductor or the whatever conduit for this universe that came from nothing. You're still saying that you're okay with the universe from literal nothing. And I don't know many atheists that are willing to say that. But I also
Same.
don't know many atheists that are willing to say that they'd worship a deity that, destroyed the earth because people weren't worshiping him good enough. Let's go to this one, and then the last two will be those Facebook posts. This one is a very stereotypical white preacher. He doesn't even have a good tie. This is definitely like old white man preacher. Yeah, he's in a Baptist church. I can tell. Oh, it's John MacArthur. I don't know if that's a picture.
John MacArthur.
Yeah.
He's a reformed dispensationalist, and which is a odd mixture. But yeah, it's not that God is silent; it's that men are deaf. Well, whose fault is that? If only there was someone that was capable of opening the ears of men. Man. Oh well. I guess it's our fault we're deaf.
No. Poor us.
Damn it. Yeah.
We could use the meme earlier. We chose deafness.
Yeah, right. Hey, Phantom, what's going on, bro?
How's it going, Phantom?
Yeah,
Dan said they believe they're eternal being pooped out the universe and they mock us. Yeah, that's a pretty accurate statement. I think Matt Dillahunty came up with the concept of pixie farting universes, like fart universe. I think that's a pretty apt analogy, and probably, if you want to be very, very technical, technically a more sound position than a omnipotent being. Because the pixie doesn't have to have omnipotence, it just has to have the ability to poop, like the fart universes.
Dude, especially when you talking about like God hardening people's hearts, and then you had quoted 2 Thessalonians earlier, where he sends a strong delusion that they might believe a lie. I mean, in this way, God is kind of making people deaf, isn't he?
I mean, he's making people like ignorant of like the truth by sending them a delusion so that they believe a lie.
Right. So then when he speaks the truth, they won't be able to hear it, right? So I mean, I'm just trying to work my argument into this analogy. Like it seems to be like God is intentionally closing the ears of people. So if your name is not written in that book, then you're deaf. So and I mean, if men are deaf, maybe find some other way to communicate with them. I don't know, show up.
Maybe write it down. Maybe write it down.
Right. I mean, so it's like I've communicated with a deaf person before. I'm not God. So there's other ways to do this. Yeah. This is really silly. This is a really silly way of blaming the victim. It's man's fault.
Okay, I think we have
Um,
those 2 Facebook posts, and that's all of them. I'm just gonna pick one at random because I don't know which one's what. Phantom said exactly. Deaf people can communicate. Yes, yes, they
mhm.
can. I've had conversations with deaf people. I could say it wasn't like easy, but it was way easier than I thought it would be. By the way,
Mhm.
I was at the gym working out, and this person was deaf. They had headphones on, and I was like, "Oh, are you done with this machine?" And then they started signing. They were like, "Oh, I'm deaf," and I was like, "Oh, I don't. I spoke a little sign language. I know the letters, so I spelled out some things and like knew a few words. But like, it was way easier to have a conversation because they could read lips. Hey, what's up, Jim? I don't know who you are, but
Jim
hi.
Sen, yeah.
Yeah, hi. What's up, man?
I like
Uh,
I
to,
like your last name, Sten.
yeah, we're doing a different kind of video today. We're doing a reaction video to some Christian memes backslash posts that we thought were silly. Hope you're
Yeah,
enjoying
we're
them
we're
so far.
normally we're normally a debate channel. We got some debates coming up really soon.
This is true. You posted this one, so you want to tackle this one or?
Yeah. So like I was gonna blot out the name, but I was like, why? Because she posted this publicly in the online. So I was like, you know what? So if she's gonna post it publicly, then whatever. I don't need to blot it out. But it says, "Dear atheist, if you think that God is going to show Himself to you in person, you're in Wonderland." And why? There are people in the Bible that God supposedly showed Himself in person to, right? He had a face-to-face conversation with Moses. Yet, despite it later saying that he guess he only showed his back and that no one could see his him face to face or die. That's all in
Yeah.
the same chapter. But it none, 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 none,
Really
nonetheless.
awkward one.
Say it again.
So that's a really awkward one.
It's like it's just a contradiction right in the same chapter.
Yep.
It is so weird. No, I
Like
think I remember when we found that out because
215 verses
I
later.
think we were I was talking about, oh, where does it say in the, what was it talking? We were talking about, can God see somebody face to face?
Yeah.
And then you were talking about how like you would say it said that you would die if someone saw him face to face. Then we realized that was actually in the same chapter, just like they're like 10 verses apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
To answer Phantom's question, what debate are you most excited about? We'd love to have one on the hypostatic union.
yes.
I think that would be a really fun one. I'd like to have one on the Trinity. That would be a fun one.
Mhm.
If the guy is willing, we had a guy named Scott come on, and he said he was going to give undisputable proof that Jesus is God via the resurrection. And I really am excited about that one because I'm not used to doing formal debates, but I am going to write my entire opening and response beforehand to show how bad the debate's going to be. Um, and then someone said, Jim
We
said
got
the
some more morality
Bible.
debates coming up as well.
Yeah, but Jim said the Bible isn't good as Alice in Wonderland. I would say if you haven't read through The Looking Glass, which is the prequel to the Alice in Wonderland, you're missing out. Lewis Carroll is a wonderful artist. He's an excellent writer.
So Dan Shire made a good point. Isn't Jesus supposed to return? And wouldn't that be in person? Yeah, right. It would
Well,
be.
yeah, that's where I was going to go with this. I was like, there's Christophanies in the Old Testament, right? There's Jesus
Mhm.
appearing to Paul in the New Testament, right?
Right.
There's
He's
also
walking around for like 33 years.
There's one more big one that people seem to miss. God once sent His Son in the flesh. we know God has done this according to the Bible before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, like that's just one of those things. Like God has done this. There's Christophanies in the Old Testament. We have a presumed Christophany with Daniel in the lion's den. We have one presumably with Moses in the burning bush. We have one with Moses just straight up seeing God, which I agree that Moses was special and we're not special, and that's why we're gonna burn in hell. Whoever said that Moses is special and we're not, I agree. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. If Jesus wrote an autobiography, that'd be a pretty interesting book. I might read it, to be honest, if Jesus wrote an autobiography. But yeah, I don't know why. That's like an unfathomable thing. That seems to me that you're saying one of two things. That you think your God is either incapable or that he won't. And either or, like, that doesn't seem like something that we have precedence for, right? Like, that's just not a thing.
Yeah.
Jesus was
Yes.
illiterate, hard to write an autobiography like that. Yeah, it's very likely Jesus wasn't literate. Chances are, if any of the disciples were literate, it was Matthew, maybe Luke. Matthew was a tax collector, Luke was potentially a physician. Paul was quite literate. He was probably the best educated of all the New Testament authors. I mean,
Well, I found that verse where we're talking about Moses. I was looking it up. It says so in Exodus 33. It says the Lord would speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend.
yeah, I
And
remember reading that.
that's in verse 11. And then you go down to verse 20, and God says, "You cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live." This is 9 verses apart.
Yeah,
Weird.
yeah, yeah. Face to face, as with a friend.
Yeah.
Nobody can see my face.
Hmm.
Luke wasn't an apostle. No, Luke was not an apostle. Luke is a presumed author of one of the books of the Bible, potentially Luke, but not necessarily. It's still quite possible that that is anonymous.
Yeah, I think
And
Luke he was a companion of Paul
yeah,
before Silas.
yeah.
But
But yeah, I think he was a physician, but Paul was probably the best educated in general. You have him growing up in Rome. You have him growing up in a wealthy family. You have him growing up with learning the Old Testament, which was at the time not known as the Old Testament, but he was just quite good at educating, and he was using scriptures to persecute like the Christians prior to his uh, Damascus experience or Tart, you know. But Jesus Cena, you can't see him.
ah, I get that now.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, hey, show up in person. I don't see why someone wouldn't do that. Um, but
Yeah.
okay, I guess we're in Wonderland, despite him doing it numerous times before, and going to do it again eventually in the second coming in 1,000-year reign and stuff. So, and
Also, if
then
anybody wants to take on that whole bag of worms of the second coming of Christ and being, people that were alive that would witness his coming again.
you're right, someone killed him, right? Good to see him face to face.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
what you're saying?
I guess because you froze. But I was just gonna say, like it's been like what 1980 years, 70
Mhm.
years since Jesus supposedly left, and nobody lives that long. You know?
Mhm. They said he was fully man and fully God, though. And so, this is why I want to have that what's the hypostatic union
Hypostatic
debate.
union.
So, because usually atheists don't take on the position of disproving God, but in this case, like there are certain gods that you can actually disprove if they have properties that contradict each other, and this is one. So, because a man is a type of non-god. There's God, and then there's non-god, and there's non-gods include everything that's not the God, and one of those things is a man. So if you say that if you're fully man and fully God, you're saying that you're fully God and fully non-God. That is incoherent. That makes no sense. You can be 50% both. You can be 99 and 1% the other. but you can't be 100% both. This makes no sense. Like it literally violates reason itself. It violates the logical absolute. It violates identity. And it's also a contradiction.
Yep.
Makes no sense. So we want to have somebody up here and argue this point, because this is nonsense. You could be like Hercules. You could be half man, half god.
Yeah,
But
they call those demigods.
fully, yeah, the demigod. Yeah, that's why I thought of Hercules when he said the demigod. Yeah, that would actually, that wouldn't violate logic. So there could actually be a Hercules, but Jesus being fully God and fully man, that is an incoherent concept.
Nope. Yeah, there's
Says
if you read any of the Percy Jackson stories, they didn't use demigod, they used half blood, which was a play off of the Harry Potter series for the magic, but they used like Camp Half Blood as the camp of demigods, which were the sons and daughters of deities with their human mortal offspring. So, isn't there some form of Christianity that believes God adopted Jesus and raised him to godhood?
Wouldn't be surprising.
Yeah, it wouldn't particularly be surprised. The problem with Christianity, and one of the problems with Christianity is that there's just so many nuanced versions and beliefs that people have. I mean, you have like genuinely really far out things that don't make any sense. Like, there's some genuine sects of Christianity that believe Jesus was an alien, and that's how he completed the hypostatic union, because he's not from this earth, and this world is not my home was not like he belongs in heaven. It was a literal alien.
I think Federer was trying to make an argument though. He says if God adopted Jesus, then raised him to godhood, that could be a way for him to be fully man and fully God. Like, so I would say no. So Jesus could start out as man and then fully morph into a God, but he couldn't be 100% both. Not unless you're saying that man is a subset of God. Like, just like, for instance, you could be 100% dog and 100% German Shepherd. That makes sense because German Shepherd is a type of dog, right? But you couldn't be 100% dog and 100% non-dog. That would be incoherent, and that's what we're going. That's the problem we're running into with man and God. Unless you want to say that man is a subcategory of God, but man has a specific definition referring to a specific thing, and that thing isn't eternal. That thing isn't omnipresent. That thing began to exist about 3 million years ago, and in the Horn of in East Africa. That's obviously not God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, he said he looked it up. It's called adoptionism. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Like I said, there is genuinely a massive spread of Christianity that they have sects that just believe in all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, man then God, not man and God. Yeah. It's one or the other. It can't be both. Like when you define God, especially if you define it in the Christian way, like most people do, they say like omniscient, omnipotent, like outside of space and time somehow, even though those things don't make any sense. But like before time began, well, Jesus had a definite beginning. Like there's a story about it in two.
That's kind of the point you were trying to make with Scott.
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of my argument is I'm going to point out things that like you claim that these things happen about your God, and then you claim these things happen about your Jesus, but those two things don't mold together. Like your Jesus.
Right, I think his definition of God was a all-powerful, omnipresent, all-knowing being that exists outside of time and space and created the universe. Well, obviously that's not Jesus. Jesus was born and died. That happened within time and space, right? He's doing things, interacting with people.
And
I mean, Thomas touched this little holes in the
into, and he, like, if he was God, he couldn't die. If he was God, he couldn't have been born. If he was Jesus, he couldn't have been at the beginning of the universe because the universe had to exist for people to be born into it. Like, there's just he just go back and forth on the number of loopholes that you're going to find. Like,
Right. He's outside of time and space, yet he's doing things in time and space. So he's in time and space. He's also outside of time and space
yeah,
at the same time.
at the 6th hour, Jesus gave up the ghost, which was in time, but God exists outside of time.
What Jim Sin said, bingo. If he's outside of reality, he's not real.
Yeah,
That's exactly what it
agreed.
means.
Agreed.
That's we've been saying that. We were saying it to Scott. You're saying he's outside of space. You're saying that he exists nowhere. If you're saying he's outside of time, you're saying there at no point, at no time did he exist outside of reality. Not real. That's what that means. So yeah, I agree. God exists outside of reality. That's it.
Last one, and then we're gonna get out of here. Beginning of the universe is a precarious phrase. Yeah, I mean, like most people, especially like anyone with any knowledge of science, says like the local presentation of space time. That's what most people talk about when we refer to the Big Bang. But the beginning of the universe technically was before that because that's where our math breaks down. Like we just don't know how to get there. That's all. So when I typically say the beginning of the universe, what I'm referring to is our local presentation of space-time. When Christians say that, they mean when God breathed ex nihilo the universe into existence. So, dear atheist, if there was no God, there would probably be no laws. Think about it again.
What the hell is she talking about? What she said, probably.
I mean,
to me,
like,
that kind of undercuts the entire argument.
Means that you're aware that laws could exist without God, right? I mean, like that's just like, if you're gonna go for it, go all in. Just
right.
Like double down on your stupidity.
Yeah, right. Don't say probably. You just undercut your entire argument. I was like, this made no sense to me, man. Oh God. Yeah. Yo, so she posts a lot of like really stupid memes, and I was running out of meme ideas, and so I saw this, and these are two of the smartest things she actually said in the group.
Yeah, these are
most of it falls in the realm of just incoherent. You won't even know what she's talking about.
I gave up on like arguing with people that post stuff like this. It's just because they're so set in their ways that there is no rational discussion with them. And B, there's so much work to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Dan Shire's comment: there probably is no God, but they're all lost. Think about it again.
Yeah.
You know, not even a perfect comment.
Yeah,
that's how I should have replied to that. You know, yeah. I mean, this is so silly, man.
This is so much. It's so much work to do. This is why I don't take on these comments like in person much anymore, because it turns into like 3 hours of me laying down the groundwork of you just having a basic understanding of things before I can start to make my point.
Right.
You know, I have to explain all these things that I just don't want to, and you're not gonna really grasp. And we've had situations like that on the show where people are just so confident in themselves that we spend more time expressing why they're wrong than actually addressing why they're wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've had those conversations where it was like, well, here's the reason this doesn't actually work, and then we don't actually get to addressing the counterpoint to it. We just have to explain all the stupidity that you just spewed out of your mouth. And so I just stopped. I stopped addressing comments like this on Facebook because they're terrible.
I remember when I first, like, I guess, came out the closet as an atheist. I was in a lot of these debate groups, and I was arguing with people online about some of this stuff. And like I got mentally fatigued just making these same points over and over again. Like, how many times have you addressed the argument that atheists don't believe that everything came from nothing? I mean, what are you supposed to do with that? Oh, if
trying to
there's no
find
God, then
out.
there's no rules. Like it's just stuff like that. If there's no morals, if there's no God, why don't you just murder the entire earth? You know, it's just because no one's keep you accountable. Like it's, and after a while, you know, it got to at one time I had it in my email. I can still go find it, but I had comments and I had replies that were pre-written that I could just paste.
Copy paste.
Because, yes,
Yeah.
because it would work because it was the same thing that was being said over and over again. A lot of times by these same people.
Yep.
Yeah, it's way easier to ask dumb questions than give smart answers. Yeah, that's for sure. It's harder to argue. It's much harder to argue with dumb people than it is to smart people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I'll say that, and then that reminds me a little bit of a guest we had on the show that said, "Why would you ask questions to a person that you don't know the answer to?" And if anyone's still curious, I ask questions fully well expecting that someone's not going to know the answer to. Most of the time, it's in the form of a thought experiment, like when I ask AAA something and we're on the phone. It's to get him thinking about this thing. It's not because I assume that he's going to have a perfect response. But, I mean, like, it's just, you get silliness like this a lot. Sometimes it's good to just kind of take a step back and laugh at it. And that's kind of what we're doing today. Yeah, Google Docs set up with canned responses. Yeah, it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth it,
bro. It'll save a lot of time.
Yep, just copy paste. Go over it a couple times and make sure all the wording's right, all the spelling's right, because otherwise they're gonna be petty.
Just use Grammarly.
Yeah, they're gonna be petty about it. And just go in there and copy
Oh,
paste.
you forgot an apostrophe, stupid atheist.
Stupid atheist. All right. Was there anything else you wanted to go over? Anything else you wanted to say?
No, we may have a debate coming up this Tuesday at 6 p.m. Still waiting for him to reply to me. But after that, we're gonna have a go ahead
regarding morality. So we're probably gonna have that discussion coming up.
Yeah, even notice we've been doing morality a lot lately. I think like the past 3 or 4 episodes has been about morality,
and that's one of those things that we have addressed an infinite number of times as well on Facebook comments and whatnot, because it's just over and over and over again. And I know the reason for this, and I've explained the reason for this, but if you're still watching and interested, the reason is because Christians think that morals come from God, and without God, aka atheism, then you cannot have morals. It is literally that simple. That is the way that their brain is putting things together. They're not cognizant that that's what's happening, but that is exactly what's happening.
And it's subjective because he's God.
Yeah, it's subjective because
there's no explanation, but it's just because he has so much power and authority. It's just objectivity.
Yep.
That's how it's working.
And that you definitely can't argue that like that's a argument for authority or that it's literally the person with the biggest guns. So
that's not how you get to objectivity. There's no amount of authority or amount of power that could make your opinion objective. Because it's like asking how much tuna does it take to make a chicken sandwich. Well, there is no amount of tuna that you could use to make a chicken sandwich. You don't have the right ingredients. So amount of power and authority in some sort of figure, some sort of being, a god or whatever, it's not going to get you objectivity. That is just
I don't know if you want to go down the rabbit hole again, but Jim says that morality is subjective.
Oh, we should get you on the show. We should get you on the show, Jim. Yo, send us what's that let me get a full email address.
Stream.
Yeah, I'm gonna put an email in the chat. And hold on. Because I vehemently disagree with you. I think morality is objective. I think moral values are subjective, but moral standards, as in morality, is not. He said we. Okay, yeah. So that means you gonna hit us up, cause we can get you on the show like pretty early, my man.
Yep, we can have a discussion. Just a more of a
He-
heads up because I haven't seen you here before. This is the format of the show minus instead of memes, it's a third person that usually disagrees with us on something. It's not formal. We just have a discussion and a conversation and ask each other questions and then just kind of suss out each other's viewpoints. So it's not a strictly hard debate channel.
oh
But
yeah, yeah.
it's
It's like a conversation, bro. It's like
it's
this.
more like a conversation on something that is debatable, hence the name. It's a
He says
debatable topic.
morality can be applied objectively. Bro, email us. Because like I would have said this Tuesday at 6 p.m., but I'm waiting on the guy to reply. Because like I don't want to say yes this Tuesday at 6 p.m. and then the other guy says like sure he wants to come on too, and then we're double booked. But if you can email me, and I'll give him 2 days to respond, and if he doesn't by like Saturday, we could get you on.
Um, Phantom says, "Can you define how you're using morality when you say it's objective?"
Oh, sure. So when I'm talking about morality, I'm talking about a very specific state of affairs. I'm talking about morality for me is well-being, and that is a specific state of affairs. Now, where that state of affairs exists independently of whether people care about them, whether people apply them, whether people use them. It doesn't matter. So, for instance, like I could take a sledgehammer, right, and I could whack Facade in the head with it, and that's gonna harm him. That's gonna do damage to his well-being. So that's just the fact of reality. It doesn't matter if I care about that. It doesn't matter if anyone cares about it. It doesn't even matter if I know that it's wrong or impacting his well-being. The mind is totally irrelevant. He says, like our morality is based on our evolution. But if we had evolved from a solo predator, we have a different morality.
So I'd say
This
there's
is
a technical problem here, and that is that because we didn't evolve from a solo predator, we have a particular dev- mental development and cognizance that no one else has. And that is our ability to reflect and understand and evaluate harm is actually part of the reason that we have morality as a basis on something that we can objectify that is harm. That being the definition of morality. Yeah. So, like, Phantom, I would say, uh, yes, we would have a disagreeable definition of morality. So, basically, we would, in that context, we would say the long and the short is we would have you either accept our definition of morality and discuss it on said terms, or you would provide us a definition of morality and we would use your terms. We would just use a different argument depending on whose definition we're using. Would you agree with that?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
I was responding to um, um, Jim Sims' email right then. I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time?
So it said Phantom said so. If well-being is subjective, sure, but that by that being the definition of morality is subjective, and I would say that like that
Oh,
basically,
the
yeah,
definitions
essentially
are
what we would.
subjectively defined because that's how definitions work, right? So like nothing has an intrinsic definition, right?
Yeah,
So
I was just saying like obviously what would happen would be that we would come to an agreement of the definition of the word before using it, and for the sake of the conversation, we'd use that definition. Whether it was our definition of the standard of morality being well-being, or whatever you pose as your definition for morality, we can use your definition. That doesn't matter or alter. We're just not going to talk about it the same way that we would in our method, in which we're using well-being as the standard.
yes, also too, I was gonna say so when we talk about how, like defining the definition. So when remember like morality is the label for what I'm talking about, but I'm not talking about the label. Like when I say if when we talk about the sun, right? The ball of energy that's in space, right? So we're not talking about the word sun. We're talking about the actual thing, the actual state of affairs that we put the label sun on. And that's what I'm when I say morality, I'm concerned about an actual state of affairs that their label morality can be applied to. So when I say morality, I define what I mean by that. But I'm just defining the label, right? That doesn't impact the thing that the label is applied to, that actual state of affairs that morality is placed on. I hope that clear things up. If not, remember, we could get Phantom back on the show as well.
Yep, sure could. And then Jim says acceptable societal behavior. I assume you're posing that as a definition for morality, in which I would disagree. Um,
Mm-mm. That's subjective. I'm a more realist because what I mean, slavery was acceptable, a few hundred years ago. So I mean, it's
yeah.
immoral.
So, Phantom, that's gonna explain a lot, and it would take a long time to go down that road with you. Uh, but for instance, you said in meta ethics, morality defines the actions you ought and ought not to take. You're going down a huge problematic road of the is ought problem. So when
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about morality, we're talking about what is the state of affairs, but you don't get an ought from an is. So when AAA said it earlier, he said it best that we're talking about the actions themselves, but your value of those actions, your value of morality, can't be attained from morality itself. My values, you don't have to care about my version of morality. However, by the way I define morality, I have an objective standard, right? But you don't have to care about it. Just like you don't have to care about like the Christian God. You don't have to care about what I drink in the morning for breakfast. But you're starting morality with oughts. There is no is ought problem. Well, I mean, I don't have a reason to care about your ought.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's definitely not objective then because reality, there are no oughts in reality. There just is.
Yep.
Like for like we can talk about like the speed of light is 186,000 miles per second. It is that, right? There's nothing about what it ought to be. There's nothing that says that the Earth ought to be round or that or anything else. It's I unless are you a moral anti-realist, Phantom X?
Also, I hate to do it, but I'm gonna have to cut us off very shortly. I'm about
Oh
15
yeah,
minutes late.
oh that's right. Yeah, you said you got your yeah, he got a
Yeah,
previous
I mean,
engagement. Yeah, right.
I'm good for like 4 more minutes at most, but yeah, just
Okay.
wanted to kind of address that real quick. But yeah, I mean, that's a whole different ball game that we'd have to discuss. The is-alts.
He's an anti-realist. Okay, that explains things.
Yeah,
So I think you would run into the alt problem because not so. I mean, to me, by saying there's no is's, you start with alts. To me, you run head first into the alt because with the universe or in reality or just is's, how are you getting your alts? Like, and how can you even like impose them on other people? So that's the difference. Like, so when, as Fasad was saying, like we don't have any alts in the system. So if you say if you murder somebody, you are immoral. Does that mean you ought not to murder somebody? No, that depends on your value, which is subjective. I'm not telling you what you ought to do. I'm just saying what you are if you do such a thing. You are immoral. You're violating well-being.
yep.
So
Jim
someone
says
cut
if
you.
somebody if a physician cuts you open to remove a tumor, is it morally bad? So obviously, like in a situation where like I just pull out a knife and cut someone, that's morally wrong. That's a moral badness. But versus like a physician cutting a tumor out of me, like the act in and of itself isn't even I wouldn't even call that a moral wrongness because we're doing it in like the progress of removing a tumor. We're doing it because if I don't remove the tumor, something worse is going to happen. If a surgeon just went in and removed random organs from me, sure, that'd be a different problem. But going into like have a cancerous tumor removed would potentially save your life. So no, that's not a moral problem or dilemma in my opinion. And then it says, what about something in the abortion debate? Pro-abortion means you're affecting the well-being of the fetus. Anti-abortion means you're affecting the well-being of the mother. We've had several discussions on this. The long and the short is we have what's called a justified immorality, in which you basically have an immoral act, which would be the destruction of the fetus in the process of the abortion itself. But because it's the mother's body and she has full rights over her body, including what's in it and everything else, because nothing and no one has a right to a woman's body except that woman, then she is justified in taking that immoral action. Phantom said he's a motivist. When I say something is bad, I'm saying I don't like that. So that's straight opinion. That's straight subjectivity. Yeah. Yeah, it's subjective, and you said literally, yeah, and it's subjective. There's no reason you should abide by my morality. I agree. There's no reason that we have to care about your feelings of what is good and bad or how you feel about it.
Those are values.
Those are values. Context matters. How is that objective? So
the context mean is that morality is determined by the facts of the situation on reality.
Yeah,
so that's totally objective. It'll be like saying, it's like saying males go into the male bathroom, females go into the female bathroom. So which bathroom do you go into? It depends. Are you male or female? Like it's relative to the facts of the situation. That's still objective.
Yeah, but the facts don't change. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right. It's not a matter of opinion.
For instance, like, if I have a gun and I shoot somebody in the chest and it kills them, is that an immoral action? The answer is always yes. However, if I'm doing that in self-defense, it's a justified immorality. If someone pulls out a knife and stabs me, that's different than a surgeon performing heart surgery on me to save my life. Context. Like, that doesn't change the reality of the situation. The reality is, okay, I pulled out a knife and stabbed a random civilian on the street. That's always going to be wrong. A surgeon trying to perform surgery to remove a tumor or fix a heart or whatever they're doing is doing something essentially trying to life save in this situation. That's not an immoral act. If the surgeon was just drunk and just stabbing at random things, sure, that's immoral. But the surgeon is doing the best they can to save your life. It's like if I perform, the Heimlich maneuver on someone and I accidentally break a rib. Well, I had no intention of breaking the rib and that was wrong, but in the process I saved their life.
So he said you subjectively set up the requirements for the bathroom when you made in a thought experiment. Okay, so let's use another analogy, right?
Okay,
so talk about this.
And I'll let you finish this, and then I gotta do.
All right, speed of light in a vacuum is at one rate called the constant, but when it goes through glass, it changes. So it's relative to so what's the speed of light? What's the speed of a photon? Well, it depends at the medium that it's going through. If it's going through a vacuum, it's at the constant, right? 186,000 miles per second, right? If it's going through glass or going through water, it changes. That doesn't make the photon speed subjective. It's relative depending on the environment.
Agreed. Sorry to cut this shorter than attempted.
Hit us up, Jim Sam.
But,
I'm sorry.
Feel free.
He's
to
an email. We'll get him on.
We can continue this, but I apologize. I do have to go. I've committed some time to a volunteer organization that works with people for mental health. So I am going to get off and do that. So to answer your subjective thing, why is it objective when it's happening? Why is the reason the subjective content? The long and the short is that when a surgeon is cutting me open, the surgeon is performing an act that's potentially going to save my life or help me in some way, shape, or form. When a stabber on the street does it, they're trying to kill me. There's a difference in me microwaving food for a baby and microwaving a baby for food.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between those things.
Yeah.
And on that note,
You're welcome.
yo,
Dan, thanks
yeah,
for tuning
Jimson,
in. I don't think we've seen
hit
you
us up,
before. If we have,
Phantom X.
I
If you want to come back
apologize.
on, hit us up.
Phantom,
Dan Shire, you want to
always-
come on the show? Hit us
Yeah.
up, bro. Email
Thanks for coming
is in the
back,
chat.
as
I'll post it in the
always.
comments as well.
Jim, welcome to the channel, man. Appreciate you joining in the chat. I'm gonna dip out of here, but it's not a motivation thing, Jim. Well, we can talk about it, but it's not a motivation thing. I really do have to go, but it's nothing to do with motivation. It's not. It's all about well-being. So if a stabber on the street stabs me, that's bad for my well-being. If a surgeon performs open heart surgery and saves my life, that's good for my well-being. Those are the objective facts. That's all. But yeah, I do have to dip out of here. Appreciate it. Jim, email us again and/or for the first time, and we'll see you guys soon. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Dan, Phantom, thanks for always